About 70 miles southeast of Brussels is Henri Chapelle American Cemetery. This cemetery is the final resting place of 7,992 soldiers who lost their lives during the Second World War. Many of these soldiers buried here were killed during the Battle of the Bulge. One of these soldiers is Sergeant Robert E. Anderson, A Company 551st Parachute Infantry Battalion.
Many men have gone, lay me down in the Colgren, wherefore many men have gone.
Bob Anderson was born on January 3rd, 1912. He lived in Berkeley, California, was married 3 times and had 1 son. Not long after Pearl Harbor, on March 28, 1942, Bob Anderson enlisted for the Army and volunteered for the paratroopers. He was sent to the 551st Parachute Infantry Battalion. The 551st Parachute Infantry Battalion was activated at Fort Benning, Georgia in 1942. The battalion was sent to the Panama Canal Zone in expectation of an assault on the island of Martinique. The proposed mission of the battalion was to capture the island of Martinique, which was held by the Vichy French. It was feared that Martinique might assist the Nazis and their U-boats during the War of the Atlantic. The invasion was scheduled for May 13, 1943, but the mission was called off when the French surrendered. After that, the battalion left for Europe and arrived in Italy in April 1944. On August 15 in that year, 1944, Operation Raccoon took off. At 1800, the 551st jumped into combat for the first time. Their jump, which was codenamed Operation Canary, was the first daylight combat jump in the United States history. On August 29, the battalion liberated the city of Nice. Corporal Joe Ciccinelli remembered saving the life of Bob Anderson. Sergeant Bob was about to run into a small farmhouse occupied by 3 German soldiers. Joe grabbed him by the webbing of his belt and pulled him out of the doorway just as the building exploded. Joe forgot to mention that it was him who caused the explosion by throwing a grenade in the building. Bob Anderson got wounded on November 4th, 1944. In a letter home, he tells about it. "Well, sis, they finally nailed the great Anderson. Still can't understand how it could have possibly been me. Maybe I'm getting too old for this. Guess I'm slowing down, old girl. I got caught with my pants down on a patrol and Jerry tried to fill me full of 20mm slugs. But for all his trouble, all I got was a couple of fragments in my right thigh. I've always said, if you stay at it long enough, you're going to get what you go after, sooner or later. It happened on the 4th of this month, and I'm as good as new already. I am at the base hospital, out of the combat area now, but I'll be going back in a couple of days, so you see it didn't amount to much. I see the lady here is cooking Java. The Red Cross lady, I'd better add, so I'll stop this and fight my way through the mob for a cup. Make way, here comes the great Anderson, to the battle for a cup of Java. What a jackass I am. Wish I was home. With love and everything else you can think of. Your brother, Bob." On December 21, 1944, the battalion arrived in Stur, Belgium, with a strength of more than 800 officers and enlisted men. The battalion was first attached to the 30th Infantry Division and reinforced the 30th Infantry Division's position around Stur. They were subsequently attached to the 82nd Airborne Division and tasked with supporting the 508th Parachute Infantry Regiment. A couple of days before his death, somewhere in the Ardennes, Bob wrote his final letter home, not knowing what the future would bring. Dear Carl, received your letter about a week ago, but this is my first chance to write. Jerry has evidently got a little ambitious, so our letter writing has been nil. I'm up in Belgium at it again, and I'm trying to write this sitting on a stump, and it's so damn cold. It's almost impossible. However, I'm okay, and damn glad to hear you are too. I'll write you a good letter and tell you all about it when I get some place where I can. Say hello to your wife and take good care of her. Now that I have your address, I'll write you once in a while. Christmas was just another day here, and sure we would have liked to be home for a hot meal and a drink, but I'll make up for it when I do get home. Well, Carl, I got to finish digging in. What a life. I'll be seeing you, old boy. Your brother, Bob. On the 3rd of January 1944, the 82nd Airborne Division received order to launch a massive counterattack with the support of the 551st and the 517th. These two battalions would form a combat team. The 551st regrouped in the woods northeast of Bas-Bodou. Their objective was Terremont. When the attack started and the battalion was crossing the open field, the Germans opened fire, and A Company got stuck in German crossfire. The fields were covered with dead and wounded soldiers, and the snow turned red from the blood. It was here where Sergeant Bob Anderson was killed in action on his birthday. He turned 33 years old. Lieutenant Dick Durkee about what happened. On the 3rd of January, the push started. As we crossed the line of departure, the weather was cloudy and very cold, and it looked like snow. Our first objective was Terrier Wester, which we took and captured 2 snipers left here to delay us. We pushed forward, and soon things were getting bad. I went forward and found a 3rd platoon halted by some German snipers. I then took a bar and with the aid of Sergeant Anderson crawled around the right flank and killed one of the snipers, and the other got away. Sergeant Anderson was killed then. He was a former coal miner and was a very popular man in the company. I asked him if he was hit bad, and he raised his hand in a sort of salute that seemed to say, "I'm okay." And then he died. Sergeant Anderson wasn't a coal miner, as Lieutenant Durkee stated, but he sure was popular in his company. On January 7th, the battalion fought its final battle. The town of Rochlinval had to be captured, which they took, but the price was very high. The battalion's strength was approximately 800 men at the start of the Battle of the Bulge. On January 8, when they were relieved after taking the town of Rochlinval against the great odds, they numbered 14 officers and 96 enlisted men, 45 who were walking wounded. O God, Commander of all men, we stand before Thee asking for Thy help in execution of the many tasks which confront us. Give us strength, courage, daring, intelligence, and devotion to duty, so that we may, from day to day, perfect ourselves as fighting men, so that someday, in some foreign land, we may, by our fighting ability, bring glory to ourselves, our country, and Thee. And O God, if the price we must pay for eternal freedom of man great, give us strength, so that we will not hesitate to sacrifice ourselves for a cause so sacred. All of this we ask in Thy name.